It's 41 minutes after 7. Roland had a conversation with Nano Yelitha that we'll bring back to you. But we want to gauge the mood outside the Supreme Court yesterday. Compare that to the earlier appearance. So we've got our colleague who is with myjoyonline.com who was based outside the court yesterday, Edwin Appiah, joining us. Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning.
You're good?
I'm fine.
Any beatings? Harassment?
No.
Okay, we thank God for that.
The threat yesterday remained a threat, so we are fine.
Okay.
Yes.
So you went for the earlier appearance.
Yes,
what was different about yesterday's appearance?
Yesterday's appearance, I think we cannot conclude that the security was top notch yesterday. Okay. You could, before you entered the building, there was this huge armored vehicle, blue, about 5 patrol vehicles and several dozen police officers around. You had to show accreditation before you actually entered the premises of the Supreme Court itself. Previously, you just entered, and then you showed accreditation when you were entering the court building. So they started screening people. Even if you were coming for Zanato's case, you had to show why you should be allowed to enter.
Okay.
So it forced everybody who was basically just a spectator to stand outside the court building. They were actually hedged between 2 roads, if you know the road very well. There's a road and there's a pedestrian walk. There's grass in the middle. So supporters believed to be Muntie FM's supporters were consigned to actually standing between those 2 roads.
Okay.
And anytime they felt like they were motivated enough, they shouted and barked and chanted.
But what really was the experience for you, particularly knowing that if they were convicted, it means that summarily they were going to have a blotch on their record, so to speak?
Well, in terms of security, what we saw was that even after the conviction, it was still going to be pretty tricky going outside, because if you went outside, you would meet them in the streets. If anybody is like-minded, he could follow up on you. So what we did was that we tried to use the other side of the court building, but we were expecting a conviction basically, and it didn't happen. They got to know that nothing happened in court in terms of a sentencing.
You're talking about the supporters?
Yeah, supporters. So it was almost anticlimactic. They were not too sure whether to jubilate or to everybody was basically trying to process the whole thing. So it kind of dampened the mood for reaction.
Okay.
For any immediate reaction from both the journalists and the supporters.
The supporters, did they know the enormity of the conclusions or the announcement of the court?
Before you even get to the supporters, the journalists were trying to even understand the enormity of it, because you see, some were reporting was remand. They had been remanded, and some couldn't really process self-recognizance bail and all that. So everybody just went away with the fact that there was going to be another sitting on the 27th, and so there was little time to actually process what was happening. And that's for the journalists. So for the supporters, you can imagine, they probably would have heard the news when they went back home.
But they were jubilated because we heard there were noises could be heard inside the court.
Yes, it got to a point, you see, they were vociferous. They stood in the sun for 5 hours. We were actually sitting under a tent, and they stood in the sun for 5 hours. So occasionally when they were motivated, you could hear them chant Mugabe, and it was very loud. It actually entered the courtroom, and the judge had to, at one point in time, express concern about where the noise was coming from. So they were determined, and they were chanting. Yes.
So you're back in court on the 27th?
Yes, we will be going to court on the 27th.
Expectations?
Well,
as if you have an interest.
It should be. We expect it should be quick. It should be very quick, and we were hoping for more journalists into getting access into the court premises. We couldn't get too many of our colleagues.
Oh, it means that some people were refused.
Yeah, a lot of people were refused entry.
Is it because they couldn't identify themselves?
It was because the court was full.
Oh, okay.
In fact, there were times that if you were a journalist and you were not accredited and you were in the court and somebody who was accredited came, you could be walked out and then replaced.
Okay.
Yes, so a lot of people who were not accredited stood outside after 8 o'clock the place was already full, so you couldn't get much as.
All right. Edwin, we'll have you here again, God willing, after the hearing on the 27th.
Sure.
Roland?
Well, thank you, Edwin, too. But I spoke to Nana Oyelitha. She is the Minister for Gender, Social and Children's Protection, or I should say Gender, Children and Social Protection. But more importantly, it's about the launch of the policy on how we manage the school feeding program in our country, of a program that started from the 2004. We've had a lot more improvement on how it should take place, how it should be managed, and she is expressing a lot more conviction that this time around there'll be a lot more sustainability of the program. It's been over a decade of the implementation of the school feeding program, and for many of the schools, children and the communities that have benefited from the program, they'll say that it's one of the means by which we've had improved enrollments, but also improvement of livelihoods in many of those communities. But I guess government needs to have a rethink about how the whole policy needs to be implemented and how also it needs to be supervised. And that is why currently the President has directed that the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection should be in charge as it all embarks on this very policy now to make sure that the school feeding program is the best as we can find in this part of the sub-region. Well, we're here to speak to somebody who is notable, not only a legal practitioner, but also a minister in charge of gender, social, and children's protection. Now, let's look at this. Nana Oyelitha has had vast experience in making sure that people's rights are protected. And Nana Oyelitha, who is the Minister of Gender, Children, and Social Protection, will be speaking to us about how the school feeding program has now become, or will become, a policy, and after its inaugural state, will become a nationwide avenue for a lot more children to not only get enrolled onto the program, but also improve their livelihoods through the best education they can have and get a lot more time to go to school. Nana Oyelitha is my guest this morning. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
And I know that your ministry now would have to manage the school feeding program.
Yes.
But I know that you also manage other social protection programs.
Yes.
Tell me a little about them.
Okay, we are the main government institution in charge of social protection in Ghana. So our mandate is to coordinate all social protection programs and interventions. At the last count, we had 44 social protection programs being run by a plethora of ministries like agriculture, health, education, Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. So we coordinate, but then specifically we are in charge of two key social protection interventions. That's the Ghana School Feeding Program and the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty Program.
And we all know the successes since your coming to the ministry. You've chalked on the LEAP program. That should be some positive news, especially for you.
Yes, it's not for me, but for the team. We have a formidable, a very good team, and the good thing is that they have evolved and created systems that are able to check and ensure efficiency and effectiveness and value for money. So, for instance, for us, a major achievement has been going electronic instead of manual. So now we have 147,074 households, and that translates into 800,000 people benefiting from LEAP. And we pay them all electronically. So the 147,000 households, we're giving e-switch cards. So then they're able to load, they're able to get their money at any time. It's very flexible. We're still sensitizing them on how to use e-switch. It also ensures financial inclusion for extremely poor households and persons who would otherwise not really have any engagement with the banking industry. So it's really two-pronged, and we're really very happy that we've been able to go electronic.
That's good policy implementation with a touch of technology.
Yes.
Well, great. And now the President wants to add the school feeding program.
On the 4th of August, the school feeding program was handed to the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Integration, following a presidential directive to that effect.
It's a program that has always fought with a lot of difficulties. I remember in the early parts when we had, was it the Dutch? Is it the Dutch government that was sponsoring?
Yes, the
NIDA sponsoring at the time, and was under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. They had initial hiccups, etc. But now funded locally or through GOG funding. That should be a Herculean task, is it not?
Well, it is a Herculean task, but it is a task that we can surmount with dedication, with innovation, with use of technology, and with right human resource and adequate financial resources. We should be able to do it. There again, we have put in place immediate measures. We've restructured, we've changed the management at the national level. We still have a lot to do at the regional and the district level. We've now put in place zonal monitors. So for every 2 regions, we want to strengthen monitoring. So for every 2 regions, we have a zonal coordinator who monitors, who goes. We have a team from Accra, the headquarters. And then we've also gone electronic. We now pay the caterers with e-switch cards or with MTN mobile, because you know mobile money is the way to go now. It makes things very easy. I mean, even for our social welfare officers who disperse, help to disperse the LEAP, we pay them electronically. I mean, we give them the mobilization funds electronically. So we've also done that. We're going through a new procurement and contracts and all that. So we're really changing a lot and restructuring. The key objective is to make sure that we are able to feed the Ghanaian child a hot, nutritious meal every day. With the changes that we have done, we're saving government of Ghana 24 million. Every payment that we make, we pay normally maybe after 1 term. We save the government of Ghana 24 million. Just, you know, the few changes that and interventions that we have made, just even going electronic. So we believe that we are on the right path.
Now, transitioning this into a policy, does it mean that the difficulties like perhaps late payments of caterers or those who are cooking foods for the various school children in the beneficiary schools would now not be perhaps encountered?
No, not. I mean, we will still have challenges. We are not there yet. So what we've done is we put in these immediate interventions to arrest and otherwise dire situation. And government of Ghana has released 450 million so far. So we've cleared all the arrests. I mean, we had arrests in excess of 1 year, payments not made, so some caterers were not feeding and all that. So we've been able to clear all the arrests. The only arrest we have is just the term that is ending now, and the caterers are being paid. So, but we still have challenges. For instance, monitoring at the district level. Now that the district assembly is not directly involved in the payments, how do we engage? Because at the end of the day, it's still a district-driven, a local government-driven initiative. And what we have brought on board is to have a closer collaboration with the Ghana Education Service and Ministry of Education. So for instance, Ghana Education Service have a database of all schools. And they have what they call the EMIS, a Management Information System. And they even have codes, electronic codes for all schools. So now we are using that to validate. Because there were some schools on school feeding that did not even exist. There were some who were not public schools and all that. So we are cleaning all of that out. Then we had a challenge with enrollment figures. So there were areas where they were less, there were areas where there were more. And so we communicated to the caterers and to the local government, we're going to use the figures that Education Service gives to us. Education Service have a mandate to manage the schools and the education sector or system of Ghana. So they are best placed to tell us how many pupils are in schools. So yes, people made noises, people went on demonstration and everything. We said, well, the Education Service is the legitimate government institution that will give us figures for enrollment. And in doing that, we've saved 24 million Ghana cedis. And so when you have reason to challenge a figure which is given by Education Service for us to pay, then the onus is on you to show.
To prove?
That, yes,
okay.
to prove that. And so what we've done is to place a complaint mechanism in place from the district level, that you can fill this form and then we'll investigate. And then if it's true that we have underpaid, we will do a reconciliation.
Well, somebody will say that's awesome, but we also know that from the initial point in 2005 when the program started, it started small. Yeah. And so, but the numbers grew over the years. Now, with that ambition, making sure that you target a lot more of the communities or the schools in the communities, it means that you're going to have larger numbers.
Yes, currently we have 1.7 million children being fed in 5,000 schools. According to the budget statement and the State of Nation address by His Excellency John Mahama, we're looking at increasing to 3 million.
Can you keep up with that?
We may not be able to expand to 3 million this year. We may not. We will start. We're looking at maybe 60% of that. We may not be able to do all of that, but we'll definitely do an expansion. And what we're doing is the innovation. We're looking at the poorest districts in Ghana, the poorest communities. So we're targeting schools in those areas because they are the ones who need to be empowered. Because what we want to do is social protection in Ghana, is to break the generational poverty. So if this generation is poor, and we are able to ensure that the next generation, the kids, go to school, we empower them, we give the parents the household leap so that they get fed, and they go to school and they receive 1 meal a day, then we are on track in ensuring that that child is able to finish, complete school, get university education, and then get employment, and then we're able to break the generational poverty. So that is what we are trying to do by synchronizing and coordinating all the social protection and ensuring that we are able to sustain the school feeding. So Roland, because of that, we got support from UNICEF, and we have an operational assessment. We're like, okay, there are challenges, there are strengths, there are weaknesses. Let's start from the beginning. What is the state of school feeding in Ghana? Then when we get the true picture, it informs us on the weak points and what reforms we should do. And not only that, it even helps us to do immediate interventions, long term and then short term and then long term. So UNICEF has helped us. We have consultants and we've completed an operational assessment and we'll be implementing that.
Quite interesting. Now we know that initially after Dandida sponsorship perhaps ran out or they were no more interested, etc. It means that the onus was lying with the government of Ghana. And with these numbers now you have on board or intend expanding towards, it makes it a lot more difficult trying to keep up with the local funding from whatever or wherever it's coming from the coffers of the government of Ghana.
Yeah, it has been difficult, but government has risen up to the challenge, and we have government recognizes the priority, that this is a priority. And if you look at the figures in terms of the education sector, looking at gender parity, looking at the number of children who are going to school now, the number of children who stay in school, the indicators are very clear. That school feeding, capitation grants, free textbooks, free exercise books, which are all social protection interventions, have positively impacted on the quality of education and on ensuring that children remain in school. So government is highly committed to sustaining this school feeding program. It's not only reaping benefits in the education sector. Let's look at the local economy. That if we are purchasing beans from the market, we are purchasing oil, we are purchasing groundnuts, we are purchasing maize to cook for the children, the smallholder farmers are getting some income. The markets, the tradespeople who sell are also getting some income. So implementing school feeding also boosts the local economy. And we need to work harder on that to make sure that we use homegrown products. So what another intervention or another restructuring is getting a strong nutrition component of school feeding. So what sort of nutrition does a child in northern region, what are her requirements?
And how can you find it locally?
And how can we find it locally? How can we use millet? How can we still give them tuozafi? How can we use groundnuts? So what sort of menu should we come up with for the savannah zone? What sort of menu should we come up with for the forest zone? What sort of menu should we come up with the coastal belt? Because we may be able to get fish from the sea, we may be able to get maize, banku, kenke. There are certain staples that are peculiar or unique to each geographical region. So we want to take advantage of that. Here again, UNICEF is supporting us together with World Food Program to come up with a nutrition conference, and we've identified some tertiary institutions like University of Ghana, and they have a nutrition department in Agric, and then Cape Coast University and others. Let the academia and researchers, and then Food Research Institute, let us all come together to identify balanced meal menus for our children.
That looks like it's going to take a long time to come to fruition.
I wouldn't say a long time. This shouldn't take a long time. I mean, if we...
Do you have any duration or time period?
If we put the planning, I'm hoping by the end of this year. It's a question of the funding, it's a question of planning. Because we can plan this, it comes on maybe 3 days. You get about, we have a national conference so that there's a discussion on what we expect, and then it's zoned down to maybe 5 consultants sitting down to come up with a zero draft. Fortunately, the Minister of Health has launched a nutrition policy, so it shouldn't be too difficult for us to use that to come up with a well-balanced menu for the school.
All this is in the immediate future, but we know that currently, over the last few years, the program has been plagued with a lot of difficulties as far as in giving the right nutrition and the right quantities as far as the diet for the children. Why did we see such a phenomenon in many of the operational areas?
I think the basic challenge was monitoring. A basic challenge.
That is following your assessment?
Yeah, following my assessment and what
I mean the ministry's assessment.
Yes, and what I read in the operational assessments that we have received. A basic challenge is monitoring, and then also the the implementers at the district level. We need to get the district assemblies and the metro and municipal to buy in, and for us to have a stronger team or committee at the district level that will monitor. We need to be strategic about ensuring that the Ghana Education Service owns this process, because the schools are in their power. The schools are managed by Ghana Education Service. So what role does the district director of education, for instance, play? We'd have to fashion out a clear role. What are the principal? And then there's a school management team, and there's also a committee, a school feeding committee at the local government level. So how are we able to ensure that they do the work? Because the local government is doing so many things. So these are some of the issues and interventions or programs that we need to look at to firm up and strengthen. But I believe once we strengthen and work out at that local level, we should be able to get better returns. So for instance, in our quest to use technology, we are working with the National Health Insurance Authority, and we are registering all the children under school feeding in Ghana. We are giving them National Health Insurance cards free of charge. So far we've done 220,000, and when we give them the card, we take their biometrics. So with the biometric card, it plays 2 roles. The kids are able to go to a hospital when they are ill. The children will be able to get health care, quality health care. At the same time, the biometric cards can be used in the schools to ensure that we at the district, the regional and the national level know when AMA ate. So we are going to procure POS machines for the schools when we get money. And with the POS, once they swipe, once the kid gets her meal, so she gets her meal and then she swipes. and then I can tell with, you see my TV, my machine at the back here, I can tell how many kids have eaten in that school, what time they ate, and then possibly even what they ate. And so that helps me to monitor, to make sure. So that no caterer can come and tell me that I cooked for 60 days, because now I have the data in real time that maybe the caterer cooked for 45 days in the first term. So technology can also help. But then even beyond that, having a strong local government committee or personnel or officers can help. And we have the core of national service personnel. We have mobile phones, so it should be easy to monitor. It shouldn't be that difficult if we're able to put a software or some mechanism.
Earlier on you mentioned 5,000. Is it 5,000?
5,000 schools.
Schools,
Yes,
okay. In how many?
In all the 216 districts.
That seems quite large, and especially when you're going to deploy this level of technology using a POS system, points, whatever it is that technology you want to use. It also means that you need to have the right kind of human resource or the right technical people to be able to manage.
Yes.
If I'm looking at your ministry, and I don't think that perhaps you may have the capacity, or even if you have, can you achieve that in relatively the time frame?
I mean, it's all a question of money. I mean, once we get the resource, it shouldn't be too difficult. We really have a crack team in place.
Really, you do?
We have a crack team. Yes, I have a lot of confidence in my team. We have a crack team in place that is ready to go, especially in terms of operations, in terms of thinking through. And that is why having a policy makes all the difference, because now we have a policy framework. And not only that, since over the past year, we've also drafted a law. We're also looking at a law. So that helps a lot. You have a policy framework, you have a legal framework, so you know exactly where you're going, in the next 5 years or that, you know exactly where you're going. We are also learning from other countries. So for instance, Ethiopia, Brazil, the Latin American countries have very good social protection, and Brazil has an excellent school feeding program in place. So we're learning from them.
Well, so the school feeding program policy will be launched tomorrow at the Alisa Hotel, and in attendance will be the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oyelitha, and possibly the President of the Republic of Ghana. It's a new facelift that the ministry and government, through its policy statement, want to give the school feeding program, which was started in the Kufuor administration, has now been enlarged to a lot more communities, we're told schools, and now through this current system, we hope that at least a lot more of the farmers in the communities would be serving a lot more of those schools that are the beneficiary schools.